The Almost Perfect Podcast.
Welcome to the Almost Perfect Podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Ha, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we are learning from Samora Chapman. Now, Samora is probably best known as a photographer these days, although I knew him growing up in our 20s in the Durban creative scene as a writer and as the editor for Mahala whilst I was running Durban Is Yours. So we used to be a little bit competitive with each other back in the day, trying to get those views, trying to get those hits, trying to get those clicks. And we chat about that a little bit on this podcast. But what we mostly chat about is photography and Samora's whole journey through it. You know, from a graf kid doing graffiti all over Durban and taking photos of that, and then turning his camera around into the spaces that he was finding himself in. And that has led to many different spaces, places, and yeah, lots of different kinds of interaction with his work. And it's now led to an upcoming exhibition at the Durban Art Gallery with Cedric Nunn called Revelations. So that comes up obviously in this podcast. We chat about the nuances of street photography, about the ethics, about learning those sorts of things through criticism from the public, and just we reminisce quite a bit over the old days of comment sections on blogs where things used to get lit before social media just became the perpetual comment section. Like Twitter these days is just a blog's, comments like section without the content really. Like no one actually reads the fucking articles that are shared on Twitter. You just see the headline and then you dunk on it. Like that's how it goes. So yeah, we kind of see how maybe, well, I see now that maybe we contributed to that a little bit with some of the more inflammatory things that we used to write back in the day. Oh man. Yeah, Samora was having a bit of a bad day, so this one kicks off a bit slowly, but we do get into it. So yeah, just letting you know, like Samora, was going through something at the time and was still gracious enough to give me his time and to like really get into things. So I'm super grateful for that. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the chat that is coming up in just a little bit. Of course, I have to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by you, which means you can support it by going to patreon.com/almost perfect. And yeah, you can sign up to various different levels there. There's a whole bunch of different things that you get out of it, including t-shirts and mugs. The mugs we've been doing for ages. If you want to buy a mug, they're 100 Rand each. 10 Rand from each sale goes to Sisonke. Sisonke is an organization that is working to decriminalize sex work here in South Africa. They are sex workers themselves, and they're obviously pro-sex work. And yeah, you can check them out at sisonke.org.za. And mugs are 100 Rand. Now, t-shirts are a new thing. You've heard me say that other thing a million times. But yeah, t-shirts are new. We're actually sold out of the mediums already. Almost sold out of the larges. Almost sold out of the smalls. We're almost sold out of everything, basically. There's like 2 of each left and 1 of each of some. Yeah, there's not a lot of t-shirts left in the first batch, so I'm going to get more printed next week. And those should be getting sent out, I was hoping today, but the courier guy haven't given me all the stationery stuff that I need from them to be able to send everything out. So if you're waiting on a t-shirt, if you ordered one this week, it'll come early next week. I'm sorry. I had a meeting with them on Monday. I paid them already. We got everything sorted. I'm just waiting on them, which hopefully isn't a bad sign for our business relationship going forward. But yeah, t-shirts have been selling well. It's been so fucking cool, man. It's been heartwarming. Yeah, if you want to order these things, hit me up, bob@almostperfect.co.za, either the mug or the t-shirts. And I probably will be doing like a special for a t-shirt and a mug at some point. If you're looking to get both, then maybe hold off for a little bit. But yeah, it's been fucking cool, man. Yeah, just seeing so many people being amped and people really digging the shirt. And it's so simple, you know, it's just the logo over my titty. And yeah, it's fucking awesome that so many people, so many of you are willing to wear this thing, you know, on your chest, on your heart. You know, say it with your chest, baby. That really does like I don't know. This thing's weird, man. You know, doing these things, especially when you do them on your own, and especially when you've had experience and other things, and you know, built a brand that didn't necessarily like it made it for a bit. Like it was doing alright. Like DIY did alright. Like never made money. Never made fucking. I mean, like made some money, but like not like money. You know, like not. Yeah, just and yeah, to be back doing another thing and like that thing being like very me centric, I guess. You know, the Durban Is Yours thing was very Durban centric, obviously. But this is like the perfect part of it. And like the whole thing, the almost perfect is many different things actually. It is partially the whole thing of now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good, or perfect is the enemy of good, or perfect is the enemy of good enough. All those things, you know, depending on what quote site you get things from, or who like riffed on it. I can't even fucking remember, man. I smoked a joint before doing this. I'm sorry. I get that I'm rambling, but that's also because I am now sponsored by King's House of Herbs on Florida Road. Go check them out if you want to start your day the right way. I got some cookies from them. I got some gummies from them. I got paraphernalia necessary for the smoking of weed. And they have got many other things there that I didn't indulge in, like creams and CBD oils and grow kits. They've got grow kits and everything. So if you dig your marijuanas and your marijuana-related accessories and edibles and topical lotions, hit King's House of Herbs on Florida Road. But where was I? I was talking about t-shirts and just brand building and all of those things. And yeah, the almost perfect thing is also because of like my name's not Bob Perfect. It's Darren Scott. I mean, I've explained this many times. I'm not like hiding anything. But my grand's maiden name is Perfect. And so, you know, I was almost gonna be a perfect. In a different timeline, I could have been a perfect. So almost perfect. Don't know if you all needed to hear all of that. I had a bunch of other shit I wanted to talk about, but now I'm done with that. I do want to say, go check out the other radio. The first episode of Blowing Smoke with Bob was launched on Monday, and it'll be coming out every 2 weeks. So I fucking loved getting to do that. It was kind of like being on the radio again, except for I could fix some of my mistakes in post. So yeah, it's like I did the show. It's basically like country, emo, punk. I sell it as if Rob Gordon from High Fidelity went to the Winston in the 2000s, this is the radio show he would produce. So that's it. That's the whole thing. It's just hipster shit, you know? But it's not even like hipster shit. It's like hipster shit. Like OG hipster shit. Like not like fucking wearing bow ties and having beards hipster shit. It's like the hipsters who look down on hipsters. That's where I'm at. That brings us to the shout out section of the podcast. And we do this every single week because we have got a cast and crew here. It's not just me doing everything here. I mean, I'm doing all the work, but we have a whole team behind us here. Over at patreon.com/almost perfect. And we have a tier there called the titular titles tier. And like I said, that makes you a part of the cast and crew right here. You get to pick your title here at Almost Perfect Media just by giving me $10 a month. $10 a month. It's nothing. Except the fact that, you know, we live in South Africa where if you earn more than $7,000 a month, you're fucking coining it. So, yeah, I understand if not, you know, I get it. But these are the big ballers. So shout outs to Chief Sales Officer of Subtle Heritage in the Greater Overberg region, Rousseau. Shout out to Vishendra Naidu, who is our spiritual advisor. Shout outs to our director of purchasing, Riz Ventura. And then shout outs to Tyron Love, our pantsless weasel. If there's any other Dilbert fans out there like who listen to this podcast and, aren't taking horse dewormer, then yeah, hit me up. And you can also pick a Dilbert related title here at Almost Perfect Media. Shout outs to Kath Jenkin, the inevitable ruler of the universe, and Queen Swifty. Shout outs to our king, that is, of course, Julian. Shout outs to our almost perfect hedge fund manager, that is Karan Sleman. Shout outs to the other Karan, that is Karan Chetty, who is the assistant to the regional manager. Shout outs to Stephen Olafia, who is the executive producer. And of course, shout outs to Neil Green, who is our key grip. Lastly, and least importantly, shout out to our anonymous benefactor. He has been a factor. That was terrible. I'm sorry. I'm not going to take it back. I'm just going to let us wallow in that one for a couple seconds. And with that, it's time for the Almost Perfect Podcast with Samora Chapman. So how are you living, Samora?
Hey, Bob. I'm all good, man. I'm all right. I'm alive and kicking. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm also alive and kicking. Like I'm feeling up and down at times, but today I've done my things I need to do. I did a bit of yoga before this, so I'm feeling good at the moment.
Today is a good day.
Yeah, it started out a little rough, and then I've tried to get my head in order, and now it feels a bit better, especially now that we're going to be chatting. And yourself, how's your week started out?
Sure, there's a whole ton of stuff going on, but I'm also just really trying to get my head in the right space. I'm personally going through some pretty tough times, so it's kind of, as I said to you in a little off the air chat, that I got to get my head in the right zone, so I'm just going to try to be honest, and maybe we can have a little therapy session.
I think that's pretty relatable, bro, because a lot of people have come on this podcast on this last year and definitely been like, yo, listen, mate, things are a bit tough, eh? Like it's been that kind of situation. It's been such a just for me especially, like I just had if people have been listening to this podcast for quite a while know, like it's just been like one damn thing after the other where things were just going wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong, and like it's like you just feel like you can't catch a fucking break,
Yeah, man. I mean, I totally get you on that, and I think life is all about how you get through challenges and how you deal with problems and how you grow stronger, and the relationships that you build along the way and the people that you connect with, and it ain't gonna be easy, and I know like positivity is so important, and being grateful for all your blessings, and at the same time shit can be real, and let's kick it off. Where do we dig in? Where do we start?
Let's start with your upcoming exhibition then. Let's actually just start at the end, I guess, and we'll work our way back to the beginning, because you've got a really big deal this exhibition's a fucking big deal. You're at the Durban Art Gallery. So tell me what it's about. I know it's with Cedric Nunn. I have read everything, but I want to hear it out of your mouth. What's the vibe here?
So probably around mid to 23rd of December. Not December, sorry, September. So it's about 2-3 weeks away. We're still finalizing the date. We're gonna have a show at the Circular Gallery at Durban Art Gallery. So it is, I suppose it's quite a big deal. It's exciting.
That is a big deal.
Many little. Thank you, I appreciate that. I've done a lot of DIY exhibitions over time,
Yeah.
To be invited to show at Durban Art Gallery is, I'm very grateful, and I'm humbled to be showing with Cedric Nunn. So for those that don't know, Cedric is quite a iconic South African photographer who made a lot of work around apartheid and also sort of the liberation. And from this work that he's going to be showing is from around 84 to 94, I think. So the work was kind of being made when I was born, and it's now, the exhibition is a look at KwaZulu-Natal, KZN, and South Africa, as a microcosm of South Africa.
Yeah.
A visual kind of journey through KZN in the 80s and early 90s, and then kind of where we're at now with my work over the last 10 years. So sort of a reflection of how far has the country come, how far has the province come, and this we both kind of document the struggle to survive, the human struggle and the strength and dignity through that. And so the work is sort of it's a look from two different perspectives at the same kind of place, and it's interesting to see that the imagery is quite similar in a way.
I noticed that with some of it, yeah.
All the hope, all the hope of a liberated South Africa is important, and it was, obviously I have a very positive outlook on our country, but I'm also about telling, speaking truth to power, and looking at things as they are. And there is, there's a lot of suffering, and there's a lot of poverty, and there's a lot of exploitation, and then there's a lot of suffering. But I mean, throughout my work, what I try and do is, I'm not really about, celebrating struggle and suffering of the people. It's not like I choose to focus in on that. I like to find beauty in the daily human struggle, and the struggle to survive, the things that we all share, and I always meet people that are doing beautiful things and that are proud and that are artists. I'm drawn to street portraits and people that are doing exciting things in the public space that really stand out. So yeah, this work is Cedric Nunn and Samora Chapman showcasing KZN 3 decades apart, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. Well, yeah, I guess that brings up...
I think I rambled.
No, like, you touched on a lot of stuff I actually wanted to kind of talk to you a bit about, because that is, something that comes up in your work a lot is the poorer side of life, the harder side of life, the struggles that come through life. But I do see that you do try and show the joy that can still exist within those spaces, and the creativity that people can exhibit within those spaces. So what's your journey been with photography of the streets, essentially? Because I know, like, I still remember you got a lot of backlash back in the day for, well, I think it was a bit of backlash on Mahala when you first did stuff on the Wonga Cats. And like, how has all of that like shaped your worldview when it comes to photography? Because obviously these are like touchy subjects, and these are people who deserve dignity. So how do you approach these things, and how have you learned over the years to be more sensitive to it, I guess?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. That's a great question, man. And it has been a learning curve. It's definitely been a learning curve. So I studied English and politics, not photography. So I was sort of aiming at journalism and film and writing. And I obviously was always interested in photography, but I didn't have the formal education in photography, and maybe was a little ignorant of kind of a lot of the ethical debates that happen.
Sure.
And I guess I picked up a camera. I was doing a lot of graffiti at the time with my brother growing up, sort of late teens, early 20s. That took me into, interesting kind of crazy parts of the city. And then documenting the graffiti, needing to get flicks of stuff that we were painting, kind of introduced me to these environments that I'm, being a suburban kid, hadn't really explored. And, I gradually turned my camera away from just graffiti and street art and started documenting the environment because I found it so exciting and beautiful. And, you know, the characters I would meet and the conversations that I had and the places I was going, I felt like it was really an exciting thing to start documenting. And I've been documenting the Durban inner city since then, probably for 10 or 11 years. I just keep going back and, you know, I've built up a body of work. And obviously, as you say, there's been some curveballs and a lot of backlash. And a lot of it came through the writing that I was doing.
Yeah.
And the kind of reportage, you know. And I feel like I was being quite ruthlessly honest with that work, and in a way having such a sort of, I don't know how to put it, like like such a sure opinion of everything, being sort of I don't
It
know
is the
how to put it,
ignorance of
but
youth. Like, and it is also the
yeah, kind of the ignorance of youth.
and it's also kind of
Yeah,
what's
do you want to chip in
encouraged.
there?
Like, yeah, because you know, I remember Mahala at the time, and I remember even Durban Is Yours at the time, and you know, lots of and Vice, you know, like essentially being a
Yeah,
model for a lot of stuff that was going on in journalism, and
yeah.
yeah, like that stuff was kind of encouraged was to, I don't know, just
To say
tackle
anything you want. Yeah,
exactly, and like to be bold in saying things that you might not necessarily know enough about. I know I did.
exactly. And I tackled, yeah, we all did. And we tackled some huge issues in our 20s that were very sensitive, you know?
Yeah,
And where I and there was no sort of there was like very much a sort of a fuck you rock star attitude towards publishing,
yeah,
and not a sort of an understanding about the how far that voice and that opinion could go, and how you needed to actually treat your subjects. I needed to treat my subjects with more sensitivity going forward, and I learned a whole lot. And I really stopped writing from that very much sort of first person narrative style that I was doing, and it had its time and place. But a lot of my work going forward has almost been, you know, direct channeling of conversations, and, you know, just sort of trying to let people speak their truth instead
yeah,
of, you know, putting my interpretation in my writing so much and having such a huge opinion about, you know, the way things are going, because I don't actually know shit most of the time. I have an opinion, but I think if I'm doing storytelling, then what I've learned is to let my subjects have their own voice. And photography is easier to do that because it's a direct representation of a moment in time, you know.
yeah,
Whereas journalism has this kind of, it's like filmmaking, you know. There's so much in the craft, and there's so much in the retelling, that there's tone, and there's, you know, there's a choice of words, and you can just manipulate and, you know, use every little angle to get a message across. And I've kind of backed away with that a lot in my writing, and that pushed me towards working harder in my photojournalism, in my photography, and letting kind of the work speak for itself. So what I'd like to do more of is just, you know, giving other people that I meet, people that I take portraits of, giving them the opportunity to, you know, say something, sort of Humans of New York style, you know.
yeah. With I've noticed like essentially that your work kind of just got more empathetic over the years, like is the way I would describe it, and especially with your writing, because yeah, once you grow up and you kind of learn that it's not all about you, it's not about like getting your name over, or it's not about like as a writer, sometimes depending on what you're writing, sure, that can be the goal. But if you're telling someone else's story and you're getting like your voice too much in it, and you're like
Mm,
meddling a bit too much, yeah,
mm,
like that's an ego thing, you know. I from my perspective, like that's something that I've like had to learn with this podcast, especially. Like there used to be a time where, like I would do things that just annoy the fuck out of me now if I listen back to all the episodes. And I'm grateful though that, like as time goes on, you learn and you do get better and you do learn to understand the sensitivities and have a bit more empathy, I guess, as you grow up. But I guess that means we could take it back a little bit, since I was talking about growing up. You were a surfer kid, I assume. Yeah, surfer kid, graffiti kid. Yeah, what was childhood like?
Totally. I'm still that kid, man. I'm just a big kid, really. I'm just a surfer graffiti kid, but I'm also a dad and a husband now. But yeah, growing up, but not letting go of that, that childlike spirit. It's who I am. But yeah, I grew up in mostly Hillcrest, a little suburb outside of Durban. But trying to spend as much time at the beach, surfing, and just living that healthy lifestyle. Did a lot of sport. Yeah, I grew up very close to my brother, and we pretty much just, we did everything together. We surfed together, we play sport, skate, do graffiti, listen to hip hop. And it progressed from there. And everybody in that little scene of mine, pretty much, we were all very artistically driven. My dad's a writer and a musician, and my mom's a mosaic artist. So all
So
my
you've been
friends got
encouraged
into,
your whole life.
it's very much creativity's been nurtured, and the idea that you need to pursue your own path, and use your talents and follow your heart. And I've been so blessed with my upbringing and my family and the people in my life, my friends, and Durban as a city. The work, the creative community has been incredible growing up. And I mean, more broadly in South Africa, I know we were able to touch base in Cape Town and Joburg once in a while. And
a bit
I
more
feel
back
like
in the day.
my trajectory. Yeah, sure. I really miss going to Joburg and Cape Town and getting that big city vibe, and meeting people and chatting and networking. So my journey has really been a testament to the community that surrounded me, that's encouraged me and helped me along the way.
Yeah, so like how did you get into the scene, in Durban? Because like you're saying, you had a crew of friends who I assume you guys all did graffiti together. And did you come into like, the Winston and Burn and those sorts of places like as a crew, or did you and your brother find it on your own? How did that all happen?
Shit, we must be getting old, eh? Gotta try and remember this journey. So the Winston and the Durban music scene, live, and the Durban music scene
Unit
definitely
11.
drew us into town. Unit 11, live, Winston, Thunder Road. I suppose
yeah.
we formed a little crew, the little Hillcrest crew. We'd have to all gang into a car together and come down to town, and kind of slowly become a part of the scene, because obviously up in Hillcrest it's like super dead suburban fucking malls and car dealerships, and we were always drawn to the city. And obviously the music scene, like we're all music heads, so we started coming to all the gigs that we could. A lot of our friends are musicians, and a lot of the Waldorf kids, Black Math. And
I was gonna say, oh, you're a Waldorf kid.
I'm a Waldorf kid, yeah.
Yeah, you're a Hillcrest kid whose parents, like, supported them in their artistic endeavors. Of course you went to Waldorf.
Yeah, we're so lucky, man. We really are. But so we were definitely kind of a part of the Winston scene. It was a cornerstone where like-minded people would meet, have a beer, talk about cool creative shit that we're doing, support each other. The graf scene was always a bit challenging because coming up, there was a lot of beef.
Oh, especially
and,
coming from Hillcrest, I can imagine.
Yeah, there was always a lot of like, conflict and bullying and stupid shit.
and
But
posturing and
yeah, we all moved away from that pretty quick. And, you know, everybody that was kind of in that little art crew that we formed went on to have interesting, exciting careers in art, like
yeah.
the guys are either street artists or tattoo artists or musicians or painters, journalists. It kind of like, I suppose I'm a photographer. I have great aspirations of being an artist, but that's
A
kind of where my
photographer
heart
is
is
an
at.
artist, but sure. But I
Yeah,
get you.
some kind of a yeah, but that scene growing up was so rad, and I got to look at your work and see what DIY was doing, and contribute to Mahala and be kind of a voice on the scene.
How did that
And
all come about?
it was very vital for me finding a platform, I suppose, and cutting my teeth as a journalist and a photographer. Uh, yeah, I suppose that was just the kind of birth of real vibrant online magazines, and that was Durban Is Yours, and Mahala at the time for me was like the cool shit.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a part of it, and what I could do was, well, I was trying to find my feet as a journalist and a photographer, and Andy Davis at Mahala was the first one to publish me. And it's funny, I was getting like $300 a story. So I started my career trying to survive off like $300 a story.
I
And
mean, you started your career getting paid. That's like, a big difference to many people.
yeah, I guess I was always a hustler. Yeah, I always I refused. I couldn't. I needed at least my beer and my petrol to be covered.
Yeah, I remember that. That's the thing with Durban Is Yours. Like, I didn't have a sales guy, so we didn't have ads really, and like, yeah, the pay thing
Yeah.
was the issue when it came to DIY. But yeah, you landed up with Mahala, and you actually landed up like becoming the editor. So, what was that journey?
It was an exciting journey, and it was a really good challenge. I was definitely too young and inexperienced to be trying to run a magazine, even though it was an online magazine. So yeah,
What were some of the challenges that were?
I feel like Mahala had a real like a heyday and a high point, And when I was a contributor, sort of really kind of finding my feet, Mahala was on a high, and it had a lot of strong voices and brave writers and photographers pushing the envelope, and it was a good thing to be a part of. And it had a good sort of a 5-year run. And then when I got the opportunity to take over as editor, I wasn't 100% ready for it. I feel it's a big responsibility to have that editorial control and to be the final authority on a subject. It's a
Yeah.
scary thing. And when you have a lot of readers and a big audience and a responsibility and advertisers, I mean, some people are up for it at 21. I wasn't up for it at 29 when it happened. And I feel like I did my best, and it was an exciting learning curve in terms of how to run an online platform. And yeah, it didn't really work out, but I learned a lot. And I feel like Andy Davis is an incredible mentor, and he's a real like a visionary guy. And he's really smart. And I go to him with pretty much everything. Still, I talk to Andy about
Oh shit.
what should I do about this challenge, or where should I go with that story, or yeah, he's like Andy Davis, Coach Davis. So that relationship has been hugely valuable in my life, and I'm super grateful for Andy. And I still work with him at Mami Wata. I still work with him at Zigzag. So it's all about relationship building, and I'm still doing stuff with Bob Perfect from DIY. So here we are.
Yeah, fuck that's the thing about Durban though, is like, yeah, you build connections and they just grow over the years, like the relationships, and like, things ebb and flow. But I also think like just as like you get out of your 20s and you stop like, yeah, like letting ego dictate things and letting, for me personally, just wanting to be like a name and wanting to be popular and all of that. Like once I've let go of that, it's just been like, yeah, being allowed to see other people in more honest lighting. Because before, when you're competing with everyone, it's like, fuck
Yeah.
that guy, in my mind at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I still remember like at times being a little competitive with Mahala.
Yeah, we totally had a thing going on.
But
It was a
that also
healthy competition. At least we had it. At least we had it.
that's exactly it. Because you were also like mirroring some like things that were going on in my mind there, like with Durban Is Yours. It's like I was not like I was fine like to dictate some stuff, but like I did not know enough about life to be like like agreeing to publish some things and to be going like, yeah, no, that's totally fine. Like I didn't study journalism. I didn't like know the ethics of any of that stuff. Like I was just wilding out and like telling people that's totally fine. You can write that. And I feel like at times that might have been the Mahala model as well.
Yeah, it totally was. And, it was liberating. It was exciting. And at times it was really important, like it's important to be uncensored at times,
Yeah.
and the youth need to have their say about shit as well. So it has a lot of value, and we learn, and hopefully we have more empathy and a little more tact nowadays. But there's still, I also like, it's also shitty to have to self-censor the whole time, and to be afraid of the repercussions of having a bold voice and saying the wrong thing and tiptoeing around. Like I was always very, just sort of ruthless, and that at times is needed. You got to take things head on and at face value and not sugarcoat everything.
Yeah.
So at a time, in a way, that kind of journalism is needed. But a lot of that, I feel like a lot of what Mahala was doing and even DIY, it's kind of just shifted to Instagram and Facebook. And in a
I
way, I
was
think
just
it's a
thinking
pity.
about that.
And yeah, in a way, it's a pity because it's a less sort of curated, less professional platform. It's a lot of, it's each for their own. It's a complicated one. I don't even know
Yeah,
how we breach it.
yeah, that's the thing. Like the social media age definitely did, because I can see like elements of the comment threads that we used to have like on blogs, and like what, like I appreciated it. Like when people like called me out or said, "No, this is fucked up," sometimes I'd go, "Hey, shit, maybe you're right." Other times I'd be like, "Ah, fuck you,"
Yeah,
this is what we're doing here. And I agree with you that like, yeah, we do. I don't know.
yeah,
You see, the problem that we have is also like the uncensored voices have just become this meme. They become like a standard type of person almost that everyone's just a little bit like cringy about. And then other people just don't want to be lumped in with those people, I guess, like myself, especially. Like I still feel like I can speak relatively freely without worrying too much about repercussions, but it's just the stuff that I want to say has also changed as time has gone on, and the things I want to talk about have, yeah, changed. And I think for me, the problem's more just like people not wanting to hear the stuff I want to say, if that makes sense.
yeah. Well, sure. I feel like 5 to 10 years ago, it was so much easier to be sure about what you thought and said. Whereas there just seems to be so much uncertainty now, and so much cancel culture that it's like it's hard to put your neck out and have, a strong opinion about things. I know that it's hugely important and it's still important to be, to stand up for the things that you believe in, and to say if you think something's fucked up, or it's important to be able to speak truth to power, speak truth in your community, speak truth as an artist. I just find it's gotten harder, whereas I thought it was going to get easier.
But why do you think that? Because I mean, it's weird to me, because it's not like, your work or the things that you want to say are necessarily things that, like cancel culture would come after or anything. You're pretty much on the social justice wave, and like are part of, I assume, the solution. And so that's why, like, to me, because to me, like, cancel culture both is and isn't real. Like, yes, it has some effects and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, like, you can just carry on doing your stuff, unless the shit you do is actually horrible. Like, to people, you can say things and people can get upset about it. I think we actually are. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but it's just in circles I'm in and stuff. Like, I feel like we can disagree and we can have conversations. And as long as we don't let, like, the internet and shit, like, fuck with our emotions and rile us up the whole fucking time. And like, and if you approach things with a rational mind and just try your best to, like, not fuck out. But I guess maybe it's just I'm surrounding myself, with the right kind of people. I'm not seeing too much of, the canceling or the people being, needing to be canceled, I guess.
Yeah. Look, I mean, that is, I totally agree with some of your points there, in the sense that it's important to be able to have open dialogue, to respect each other's voices, to respect each other's opinions, and each other's sort of right to have a voice and a place in the world, and to not let ego get involved and take things personally and hate on each other. I'm exhausted by that sort of, the way that social media seems to breed a lot of conflict and divisions. And it is a kind of it's a reflection of everything that's going on at the moment, and what I'm saying is that it's quite hard to find your niche amongst all that, as an artist, as a writer, and as a photographer. And a lot of the time, of late, I'm either just on a sort of a social justice tip, or I'm on something that's, just supposed to be beautiful, and something that has an aesthetic value, and people can read into it what it is. Either I'm going to just kind of I'm just trying to channel as much truth as possible, basically, so that there isn't room for misinterpretation and, misrepresentation. If that makes sense.
I get that. Because, I mean, unfortunately, we do live in an era where things are intentionally misinterpreted a lot of the time. And, sometimes I get it. Sometimes, like, people wake up in the morning and I just, like, fuck this guy and, want to find fault. And, that I understand, because I do understand how the internet is this conduit. And, I've been a fucking part of it. Like, I'm actually right now, like, taking a little Twitter hiatus, because it just affects me in the worst fucking ways. Like, I just don't like the person I become when I'm on that shit. And, like, it's so addictive. It's so manipulative. It's so, you just get caught up in so much nonsense that isn't even, like, really real in a lot of ways. And that's what gets to me about, like, all of that shit, because it started out as, like, the dopest way to communicate, like, all these things from, like, blogs. And because when we were writing, it was like a back and forth thing. It was a conversation between us and the audience. And sometimes they disagreed and fucking wanted to tear our throats out. But at other times, like, it really contributed and helped. And I just wonder, like, where we're at now, if, I think it does happen in some instances, like I was saying, like in my circles, sometimes we can have some pretty decent conversations, but then I get on Twitter and I'm not too certain, how much that is there, because there's such a performative aspect actually to being online these days. There's such a spectacle led like
Yeah.
way that we have to be. You know, people are heightened characters and are just bigger than they really are. Whereas if you just had to have a conversation with them in real life, it would probably go very differently.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those things where I feel about it is that you got to play the game, you know, and you got to make the best of it. Luckily, we are kind of, you know, lucky enough to be able to see it really objectively and see it for its pros and cons, you know, and have a break from it when it becomes overwhelming. But yeah, I just sort of, I'm not on Twitter. I kind of am hardly on Facebook anymore, and I just have capacity to do Instagram. And that's about as much as I can manage. But the complicated thing is as well, you're publishing on your Instagram, and then you neglect projects, and you neglect like doing bodies of work that you are aiming to publish, you know, to a broader audience. You're just talking to your, you know,
This is such a good
your
thing to
little
talk about
circle or
because
whatever.
these are conversations that Paige and I have sometimes, you know, about photography and about like how, you know, important is Instagram, because obviously it helps get your name out there and it helps people know who you are. It's a good like visual, you know, it's a good visual gallery in a lot of ways. It's like a free blog essentially, or a free website, but the way it traps people there,
Yeah.
and then also, yeah, it's like reaching beyond your actual audience is so difficult on there, and it takes up time and thought and worry. And like, you know, you post a photo and then you go and you check it 5 minutes later to see how many likes it got. You check it 5 minutes later, see how many likes it got. And that's like the whole fucking day is just like, you know, now like seeing how people have interacted with this thing. Or at least that's like what it like can be like for me. And that is something like I'm just trying to like let go of just being like, post the thing, put my phone down and go do something else, go do something valuable.
Totally. I mean, what is it called? It's like a dopamine hit, hey?
Exactly.
That's what they say. It's a drug, man. And we all want to be seen and acknowledged, and we want our work to be validated, you know. And it's a tough one. Whether or not you have to be on there is debatable. I don't know. I mean, when I look at Kylie, my wife Kylie's Wenzel is a painter, as people know.
Yeah, they can go listen to that episode of the podcast.
Yeah, Kylie was chatting there. This little shout out to my lover for her podcast with Bob.
But as you were
yeah,
saying,
so as I was saying, like Instagram for her is pretty much the cornerstone of her career and her business, you know. She hasn't, like, obviously her following is growing and that, but it's where her work lives. She's a painter. She sells work directly off Instagram. Galleries from all over the world communicate with her, you know.
yeah,
Her work's starting to show abroad, and she has a very sure trajectory, and Instagram is a crucial part of that, you know. And her work has really taken off, and I'm not saying it's only due to Instagram, but like she's really
well,
fucking
her
good.
work is really good, and Instagram allows her to show it.
Her work is really great, and Instagram is a vital part of that business. So as a
But for yourself,
photographer, you kind of, yeah, for me, like I plug away at it, you know, and I definitely enjoy Instagram, but it also it's a distraction. You get a lot of inferiority complex when you see other people doing amazing work, and you think to yourself, yo, I need to get out, I need to make work, you know, my work's not good enough.
that is so
And I
relatable.
think as an artist, that's just something we go through, you know. We just go through that. You got to try and not compete with everybody around you. You got to make your own work. You got to make unique work. You got to see value in the things that you do, and have faith that, you know, you have a purpose with your art. And if you put it out there and it's unpretentious and it's honest and it's the best you can do, then let people respond to it how they will. You know, it doesn't really matter, as long as you made yourself happy creating that work. Then that's what's most important.
Yeah, it's there's such a fine balance to that whole doing things for yourself versus doing them for other people. And obviously doing them for other people can be doing them for yourself, you know, but like the when I talk about
Yeah.
doing it for other people, I talk about more doing it for their admiration and like worrying about what
Mm,
your peers are doing. Like I fucking hate it so much because like I'll see other comedians and like posting about being in this movie or being in this thing, and like it's just like, oh fuck. But then I'm sure there's people that see me posting like some of these like podcast episodes and they're just like, oh fuck, Bob got to talk to that guy, Bob got to talk to that woman, like Bob got to do this, like, but there's me busy being like,
yeah.
Ebenezer's in a short film, fuck. And like instead of just being like, let me make a short
Mm,
film, which is, the solution, obviously. But like, yeah, like
yeah.
you just see other people's stuff and you're like, I need to be better, but that's such a terrible way to think because what is being better? Like just create honest art, as you're saying.
Having peers is a good thing. It's a good thing to be part of a scene. It's a good thing to be looking at other work, you know?
But there's a healthy way
It's
to do it and there's an unhealthy way to do it.
totally. And we all gotta wrestle with the ego, and we gotta be humble and be supportive of our friends when they're killing it, and keep at it, I guess. And that's what we do. That's what we do our best to do. That's why you're doing 5 podcasts, 10 podcasts a month. You just keep on going, and you do what you're born to do.
Yeah, that's it. Like I've learned that this is an aspect because there is a part of me that does just love finding out people's stories and then sharing them with everyone else. Because growing up reading magazines like Blunts and stuff like that, I love the interviews. I've always enjoyed that aspect of the process. Like the artist releases the art and then you get to talk about it with them, but also you get to find out
Yeah.
the inner workings behind everything. And like, yeah, so that's the thing. I've learned, like with this podcast, it doesn't always get the listens that I probably would have wanted it to, at this point in us doing it. Like I had bigger numbers in my mind. But at this point, I'm so fucking happy and content just like having these conversations that it is at that point where like it doesn't fucking matter if anyone ever listens to it. I know as someone trying to promote a show that they've got coming up, not necessarily what you want to hear, but that is like how I feel about it, and it's such a nice place to be.
Oh, that's cool, man. I really respect that, and I'll I'm not really here to promote a show. I'm more about having the opportunity to chat to you. So, shot for having me on on your platform.
No, well, I hit you up not knowing that you had the show coming up, but like, that was a
Yeah,
catalyst
totally.
slash talking point thing, and it is a thing you've got. And it is a thing, like, just looking at your history, it's like it is really cool to see since you've been such like a DIY cat, you were someone who even till very recently has been putting on his own photography shows and lots of different kinds of venues. And like, of course, that's how it's done in Durban, but then once it's actually you see someone break through into that like next level, I don't know, it's fucking dope. And it's like, yeah, that's why I'm super stoked for
Thank
you
you.
that you're at that point where fucking Durban Art Gallery, like that is, they do very few exhibitions every year. So that's why like that's such a big deal because it's not like
Yeah,
it's a monthly thing there. Like they're very selective and it's usually quite
yeah,
important work. So how did you feel
yeah.
like finding out that that was all going to happen? Like how did that all happen?
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate the kind words, and it is a big thing, and I'm super grateful, and it's actually being the show is kind of being put together by Alliance Francaise.
Oh, cool.
So it's Alliance Francaise and City of Durban Metro show. The curator is called Ingrid Bamberg. She's not from Alliance, but she's a sociologist. And the director of Alliance Francaise is the one who's really conceptualized the show. His name is Gilles. Yeah,
Okay.
he's from Paris, and I'm working with Gilles, the director of Alliance Francaise, and the curator, and Cedric. So it's a whole new experience for me working like with a team on a show. I'm used to doing whatever I want. So I've had to, really collaborate, and I get the chance to learn from other people, learn from Cedric, who's just like an incredible, legendary photographer, and his work. I'm humbled to show work alongside Cedric. It's actually quite a frightening thing to see my work alongside his work. He's literally like, he should be in the history books. His work is sort of magnum level. So yeah, I suppose I'm gonna have to sort of see what comes out of it. I hope it's so. The show is also traveling. It's showing in Luanda, Angola,
Oh wow.
in November, and then possibly in France as well. Yeah, so it's going to be my first time really showing properly outside of Durban and taking this work elsewhere. And I just hope it gives me the opportunity to work on other projects and meet people that can help me move with my work, because although Durban, I love everything about Durban, and it's been the most incredible journey, sort of having this body of work that speaks about Durban and is very Durban centric. Like I need to spread my wings, and I've worked elsewhere in the world on small projects here and there, but I'm hoping to showcase this work around the world in other cities and other places, and it's going to give me the opportunity to really start work on some new projects. And yeah, I'm would really like to do more African cities. My passion for street documentary photography hopefully can take me to new places and help me explore, because that's what drives me as an artist. And it's hard to work on the same project for so long. Like I'm ready to really take on some other big cities. I want to go to Lagos, and I want to go to Dar es Salaam, and yeah, I plan to go to Senegal. So that's what I'm hoping for the future, to really travel and find some exciting projects outside of Durban.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm on a similar wavelength, and we just gotta manage this COVID thing, and yeah, hopefully life can get a
Yeah,
little
Spanners.
easier. Yeah, um, but yeah, okay, it's time now because we're nearly out of time to get to the Patreon questions. Every week, you can
Sweet.
go to patreon.com/almost
Yeah.
perfect. You can sign up and you can ask guests questions. So Patrick Duff, a name I'm
All
sure you're
right.
familiar with. He says, "Yo, dig your work, Samora,"
Yeah,
and
Pat.
says, and he says, "What equipment did you start out on, and what are you shooting on now?"
Oh man, nice to hear from old Pat. So I actually was lucky enough to be at the very end of the analog kind of thing. I learned on a old Nikon 35mm film camera. That was my first camera with a 50mm lens, and yeah, learned how to do manual everything, and look at the light meter and manual focus and working with film. And unfortunately, I never worked in the darkroom, but yeah, that's what I learned on. And now I shoot on pretty much several different cameras. I shoot with anything I can get my hands on, just to stay like energized, and excited and interested. So I shoot on my I don't know if you guys can hear the hardy dog.
Yeah, we
Hollering.
can.
I shoot on a 5D Mark One, or old 5D. I drag that around the city, and
Oh
I shoot on
wow.
a Canon 6D, and I shoot on a 35mm film camera. I got a couple, a Pentax and a Nikon, and I shoot on my phone. So that's kind of the exciting thing about this exhibition, is that there's work, 35 millimeter black and white film work, there's digital, and there's cell phone photos, all in one show at the Durban Art Gallery, which is kind of weird and kind of interesting.
That's fucking awesome. Yeah. Like I mean, it's where we're at, you know? Like use the camera you have, as Annie Leibovitz would say.
Yeah, totally. I learned a lot from her.
Cool. I'm gonna ask one more question here. This one's by Simp Slayer. He sent in a few, but I'm gonna ask the best one. And it is, if you had a clone of yourself, would you use the clone to do other work you need to do, or send the clone on an adventure of explorations every 6 months and download the experiences into your head?
Sure, that is a tough one. I think definitely if I had a clone, the one clone should just be having the most fun that they possibly could and not do any more work. So exploring would be the clones, and then they can download the experiences into my head, which is what I thought you said.
Yeah, so then that actually sounds like you swap every 6 months. Like one goes exploring, one does the work.
Totally. I mean, luckily my job often involves exploring, but I think it's so important to, to try and find a balance between work and art and family and fun. Like we all really just got to aim for that.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, cool. That brings us to the end here. I want to obviously say thank you very much. This has been a great chat, and I feel like, yeah, we got to chat about a lot of different stuff. Got to bring up a lot of different topics. I'm stoked with this.
Thank you. I hope it all sounds like it makes sense, and I appreciate the time. Thank you. I have reverence for what you do. Appreciate it. And shout out to my family, my beautiful wife Kylie, and my beautiful 2 kids, Baby Wild and Elijah. And thanks to anybody who took the time to listen.